Hello dear listener, welcome back to the Lawyer Talk channel from BLawyers Vietnam. I am Dang Thi Kim Chau and I'm pleased to meet everyone again on today's podcast Exposed. Today, we discuss the regulation on standard responsibility of producer and exporter, specifically recycling packaging. Accompanying us today is Ms. Luu Thi Thu Thao. Ms. Thao will share with us insight into the relevant legal regulation as well as practical advice role from her experience in supporting and advising clients in carrying out the standard responsibility of producer and exporter, specifically responsibility of recycling packaging.
Hello, Joe and listeners of the Lawyers Talk. I hope the insights shared in today's topic can help listeners gain an overview of Vietnamese regulations on producers' standard responsibility, especially the responsibility of producers and importers for recycling packaging. Listeners then can understand the legal regulations and apply it more effectively in practice.
To start today's podcast, Ms. Thao, could you provide a general introduction to standard responsibility of producer and exporter to help our listener learn more about this topic?
The standard responsibility of producers and importers, or EPR, is a practice and policy wherein producers and importers are responsible for managing the disposal of their products they make or import when consumers no longer find them useful. This plays a crucial role in promoting the circular economy. In Vietnam, EPR is regulated by Articles 54 and 55 of the Law on Environmental Protection 2020. There are two specific responsibilities. The first is recycling responsibility. Producers and importers of products and packaging with recyclable value must carry out recycling according to the mandatory recycling rate and standards. The second is the responsibility for waste collection and treatment. Producers and importers of products and packaging containing harmful substances that are difficult to recycle or create challenges for collection and disposal must financially contribute to support waste treatment activities.
As introduced at the beginning, today's podcast topic is about the recycled packaging responsibility of producer and exporter. This is one of two EPRs applied in Vietnam. Next, I would like to share that in Vietnam, in addition to packaging, other products such as battery and rechargeable battery, engineering oils, tire, electrical and electronics products, and vehicle ether produced and imported are also subject to the recycling requirements. Accordingly, producer and exporter are obligated to undertake the recycling of packaging produced and imported after consumers have discarded it, effective from the 1st January 2024. Third, whereas previously, businesses engaged into producing and importing only recycled waste from their products on the voluntary basis are now required to fulfill this obligation in accordance with the mandatory standards and rates set forth in the law and related guidelines. So, Ms. Thao, could you share more detail on which type of packaging that producer and importer are required to recycle under this responsibility?
Packaging subject to recycle responsibilities includes commercial packaging, which encompasses both primary and secondary packaging of products and goods that are distributed together with those products and goods. Examples include packaging for food, cosmedicines, fertilizers, animal feed, veterinary medicine, detergents, and other products used in household, agricultural, and medicine fields, as well as cement.
On the topic of recycling responsibilities for packaging by producer and exporter, I believe this is an area of great interest to both domestic and international businesses. So, Ms. Thao, could you share whether, under current legal regulations, producer and importer are obliged to choose how they fulfill their recycling responsibilities?
Currently, when it comes to recycling responsibilities for packaging, Producers and importers, whether individuals or organizations, can choose one of two options: either organize the recycling of their packaging themselves or make a financial contribution to Vietnam Environmental Protection Fund to support packaging recycling efforts. It's important to note that producers and importers must fulfill their recycling responsibilities in accordance with mandatory recycling rates and standards, which are to promote a green and sustainable circular economy. Currently, the mandatory recycling rates for packaging range from 10% to 22%, depending on the type of packaging. For example, the required recycling rate is 20% for cardboard, 15% for mixed paper packaging, and 22% for aluminum packaging, and 50% for glass bottle, jars, containers, and etc.
As you just mentioned, producer and exporter of packaging can choose to fulfill their recycling responsibility either by organizing the recycling of packaging themselves or by making financial contributions to the Environmental Protection Fund. So could you share specifically about the form of choosing an organization to implement recycling with our listeners?
If producers and importers choose to organize recycling themselves, they can do so in the following ways. First is self-recycling, in which producers and importers must ensure environmental protection requirements according to the provision of the law. Recycling should not be conducted if this requirement cannot be met. The second is hiring recycling entity to perform recycling. It's important to note that the hiring recycling entity must comply with legal environmental protection standards. Third is organizing an intermediary organization to perform recycling. Accordingly, the authorized party must meet the requirements, including a legal entity status, no direct engagement in recycling, no ownership ties to any recycling entity within the scope of organization, and organization from at least 3 producers and importers to organize recycling, and the last one is combining the aforementioned ways.
Thank you, Ms. Thao, for sharing. With this content, I know that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment will publish a list of authorized recycling organizations and units to have the producer and exporter learn and choose. Currently, the EPR Electronic Information Portal has announced 46 packaging recycling entities according to the notice number 86 dated 20 February 2024 and notice number 460 dated 14 August 2024 and one organization authorized to recycle packaging according to the notice number 782 dated 18 December 2023. It is also important for our listeners to know that when selecting and entering into contract with recycling entity for products and packaging, producer and importer must carefully assess their entity product capability and evaluate the capability, technology, and power of recycling units to ensure that it meets the required recycling rates and required recycling standards, and meet the environmental protection requirements of recycling units at the time of signing the contract.
Thank you for sharing. Continuing with the method of organizing recycling, producers and importers are also required to submit an annual recycling plan and report the previous year's recycling results to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment before March 31st each year. In cases where the entire responsibility is delegated, the authorized organization is responsible for managing registration or reporting on behalf of producers and importers. It's also important to note that recycling plan is based on the volume of the packaging produced and placed on the market in the previous year. If there is any difference between the actual and planned packaging volume, The difference must either be added to the recycling plan for the following year and reported based on the actual figures.
Thank you for your detailed sharing, Ms. Thao. Next, can you share with our listeners the second form of recycling responsibility, which is to contribute the Environmental Protection Fund?
For the financial contribution form, instead of registering an annual recycling plan, producers and importers must self-declare and submit a declaration of financial contribution according to the instruction of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment before 31st March each year. Like the first form, the declaration of financial contribution amount is calculated based on the volume of the products and the packaging produced or placed on the market and reported during the previous year. Likewise, in cases where there is a discrepancy between the actual figures and declared amount, producers and importers must either pay the additional payment or have excess payment deducted from the contribution for the following year.
Regarding the content that Ms. Thao have shared, I and the listener also want to more clearly know about the legal regulation on contribution and the time of the fund contribution. Can you share more about it, easy for the listener to understand better?
Regarding this issue, I want to share the following information. Producers and importers can choose to pay one-time financial contribution to support recycling to the Vietnam Environmental Protection Fund before 20 April, or they can pay two installments. The first installment is of at least 50% of the total amount before 20 April, and the second installment for the remaining balance before 20 October of the same year. The specific contribution amount is determined based on three factors: the mandatory recycling rate for each type of packaging product, the volume of packaging produced, placed on the market, and imported in the years of EPR implementation, and the recycling rate. Currently, there is no official regulation in Vietnam regarding the recycling rate. Legislators are still in the process of building and developing a project on recycling rate. We also hope that in the near future, specific guidelines will be issued to define this recycling rate.
Regarding the Environmental Protection Fund, I would like to share with the listener that this fund will be used to provide financial support to recycling activity with proposal repair according to the guideline of Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, reviewed and voted by the EPR Council and approved by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. The acceptance and yield of financial contribution to Vietnam Environmental Protection Fund to support recycling must adhere to the principle of transparency, openness, and proper use. So, Ms. Thao, could you explain what legal regulation an individual or organization, such as packaging producer and exporter, may face if they fail to fulfill their recycling obligations?
As mentioned earlier, the recycling responsibility is mandatory for packaging producers and importers, and they are required to recycling according to the specific ratios and methods. In cases where producers and importers fail to comply or do not fulfill to comply recycling obligations, they will be subject to administrative penalties based on the specific violation. Fines can reach up to 1 million for individuals and 2 billion for organizations. Additionally, the violating producers and importers will be required to take corrective measures in accordance with the law.
Thank you for the valuable insight from Ms. Thao. Dear listener, we have seriously go through the main point regarding the regulation related to recycling responsibility of producer and exporter of packaging. I believe information will help listener gain updated information about this topic from a legal perspective.
Thank you, Joe, for your questions, and our listeners for your attention. If you have any question or concern, please leave a comment below. Or for more information about BLawyers Vietnam, feel free to visit our website link below. Goodbye and see you again.